Thank you for staying with us. The Naira has sustained its momentum at the parallel market, appreciating 710 Naira to the dollar in Lagos since late last week. This development represents 115 Naira, or in some people say about a 13%, that's in calculation, gain compared to almost 900 Naira it traded early last week. Bureau de Change operators around Lagos who spoke to our crew says that their buying rate at the moment is around 700 and the selling price about 710 Naira, leaving a 10 Naira profit margin. Well, the trader said there was moderation in demand for dollars by citizens. But how sustainable really is this development, and is there a possibility that we will continue to witness this slide? Talking about in the greenback and appreciation of the dollars, of the Naira, I beg your pardon. Let's make more sense of this developing story. It is indeed a developing story around Nigeria's foreign exchange market, which we must feast on and, just get different angles to it. My guest is Mr. Ayodeji Ebo. He is the Managing Director and Chief Business Officer at Optimus by AfriInvest. Thank you so much, Mr. Ebo. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start this way. When you saw the rate at which the Naira appreciated against the greenback, that's early in this week, late last week towards early this week, what was your reaction, and what do you think is responsible for this?
Okay, thanks. And so I've been trying to study the trend. If you look at the trend in the last few months, always notice that when there's a lot of speculation, you see the rate move significantly. So when you see them moving in successive days with significant numbers, you would see that there's always a break. So in my mind, when it was approaching 900, it was expected that we should see a breather, which was what we saw, because it was all based on speculation. And when you look at, if you are close to the market, there were no transactions even at that, no significant transaction, I would say, at those levels. So it was difficult to establish a price. So with the appreciation that we're seeing, it's also based on the news in the market that maybe CBN may want to increase supply into the market, which would impact on the demand. So I would say that it causes, when there's volatility in terms of projection, so it impacts on projection. And for speculators, I know a lot of people lost money because the target was higher than where it stopped for those that are speculating on the Naira. So, but by and large, looking at it technically, so I believe that what we're seeing is just as a result of the continued rationing of the dollar by the CBN, and it's beyond even the CBN. The CBN has a limit to how much of a defense they can do because of the huge oil theft that is going on in the country. That has reduced the supply of dollars to the CBN, and as a result, the support that they also give in terms of supply will also be impacted.
Well, I want to ask you, I spoke to the president of APCON yesterday, not holding brief for them, but the issue around CBN not supplying FOREX to the BDCs is something that has been on the front burner for some time. The BDCs argue that they can meet up with the BTAs, PTAs, and service Nigerians in every nooks and crannies of the country, of all the states. But the CBN is not giving FX, allocating FX to them. Do you think there is any problem around this end?
Okay, thanks. And I can recall what led to the suspension of supply of dollars to the BDC. Even when the CBN was supplying the BDC dollars, we were not seeing the impact on the economy because as long as there's a significant spread based on the official and the parallel markets, we'll continue to see a lot of round tripping. And that was what informed the decision of the CBN to cut that supply. But if you do a proper analysis of the supply that the BDC enjoys, you would come to understand that the supply from the CBN is a minute portion because there's the autonomous sources that they also have access to, which also gives them the source of supply. So I believe that what the CBN has done, in my view, is just to have control. It's easier for them to slam the banks if they round trip compared to having thousands of BDCs that you don't have much control over, which I feel that they also look at in terms of supply. That it also be difficult for them to continue to meet that supply given the depleting external reserves.
Worried also about the dwindling foreign reserves, but this issue of our urge for foreign things, we crave for foreign things. Some say this might just be a temporary move because the demand remains high. Airlines are here to repatriate their funds, threatening to leave the country. We've heard about that. Manufacturers are also raising an alarm that this is killing business. We are moving towards the end of the year. So I'm thinking that once we don't have enough to meet the demand, there remains a challenge.
Yes, I think that we are aware that, excuse me, we are an import-dependent economy, and the demand will still be sustained because we are not producing as much as we should. So that as long as we have that demand, we'll need to be able to increase the supply of dollars to the economy. And when you look at the major source of supply is oil. So there's a need to reduce the oil theft to a minimum level such that the FX oil proceeds can increase and give the CBN more ability to defend the Naira. But beyond that, there needs to be like a roadmap, a deliberate effort to increase internal production. When you look at what government currently does, if government is trying to, if they can be subsidizing production rather than consumption, you would see that there will be a lot of production in the economy, and that will reduce what we are also importing. But right now, it's not easy for businesses. By the time they produce, the cost will be significantly higher than importing them. And this is a demand and supply market. So what you typically see that for those that are even supposed to be producing, they have the capacity to produce. If they know that it's cheaper to bring in those goods, despite the high exchange rates, they would prefer to bring that and just add their margin rather than produce in the economy. So there needs to be more, I would put more deliberate effort, and it needs to be backed up with action such that we begin to subsidize production. CBN, yes, I've done a lot of intervention funds, but there's a limit to what the CBN can do. The government needs to create that environment so that private sector are willing to fund. Banks are happy to fund if they're able to de-risk the economy.
Interesting. But I can say, and myself and you, we've discussed a number of times about initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at addressing this disparity between the other market and, of course, the official exchange rates. What is your assessment of some of the introduced initiatives by the CBN to attract FX? I don't think it's working 100%.
Okay, thanks. And can say based on the data, most of those initiatives have yielded positive results, but there's a limit to what they can achieve. Yes, there's the one for the 5 Naira for one. There's also the one for the exporters. That's, I think the spread is about 60 Naira. Can't recall vividly, that they pay if they remit those proceeds through the official window. So I believe that that has achieved a lot, but there's a limit to how much that can achieve. The remittances, as long as there's a spread, so what CBN needs to see the best way to do is to close that gap. As long as there's a gap, no matter the policy you try to bring in, people will circumvent it because of a spread. Currently, you see, based on looking at the parallel market rate, where for those that don't have access to the CBN window, source for dollars, currently at 800 Naira, based on market rates, because for investments, investing in Euro bonds, you have to also source for your dollars. So it's around 800 Naira to $1. When you also look at the I&E window, about 437 or 438 Naira. So that spread there's no incentive for people to remit dollars and through the official window and lose about 300 Naira. So as long as that spread continues to remain, the effort to attract dollars through the official window will continue to reduce. And don't forget that the FPIs that provide support in the past, in the last 2 years, given a lot of the constraint that they had in expatriating their funds, a lot of them are not looking at Nigeria currently. So when you had all this together, you would agree with me that it's really going to be a tough one, and the focus should be reducing the gap so that you take away the incentive for people to round trip, and people can come in, investment can come in through the right window, and supply would increase and give more ability for the CBN to defend the Naira.
Great stuff. But outrightly, would you also agree, or what's your reaction to those or analysts that have said, if we allow this flow, demand and supply, we will resolve this crisis? Do you think that will work for a country like Nigeria?
Okay, thanks. I don't belong to the school of thought that says the Naira should be floated. I'm for the managed floats because we're developing economy. And when we talk about managed floats, it means that there's a peg, and when you see the need to move or to make adjustments, you make that adjustment, but you can't leave it to markets. We don't have an efficient market, and we are not at that level where we leave our currency to float. But I'm also not for a fixed. Is when we talk about the managed float, means that when you see that there's a need to be an adjustment, make those adjustments early enough. Because what happens if you study the last 6 years or last 10 years, the more you delay to make those adjustments, the more that spread and the more adjustments you will need to make. So at the end of the day, you would see that it's like self-inflicted problem that we're causing for ourselves because of those delays. So I belong to the school of thought of the managed floats FX regime, which I feel the CBN is using, but in terms of the timing of when to adjust is what needs to be worked on.
Let me ask you, like what a layman would say. Some say, oh, there's a little bit of respite. Yes, it seems to be a little bit of edging up and bridging this gap between the black and the official rate. But some say, don't forget, 2023 is an election year. We are moving towards an election year, and some say the dollar might still hit 900 Naira. Some even said, I don't want to be a prophet of doom. Some say about 1,000 Naira if care is not taken. What is that care that we need to take as we move to an election year?
Okay, thanks. And I won't also want to make any projection to trigger any form
Indeed,
of,
to be safe. I agree.
Yes, so, but I think that one thing that we should note is that as the problem of dollar supply being solved, the answer is no.
No.
So as long as this problem remains, it means that there will continue to be pressure on the Naira. So it's now a matter of how much pressure should we expect When you look at the last few weeks, what we've seen on the last 2 weeks since the announcement of the redesign of some of the notes, there are a lot of speculations that people will move money from Naira to dollar. So that speculation caused a major spike, which was not fundamentally driven, wasn't just based on demand and supply, was a lot of based on speculation. So now we're here to establish like a trend. When you see the movement, when it's very volatile, what I will always say is for people to stay on the sideline. When he established a trend, you would see the trend within, if it settles at, let's say 750, for instance, and you begin to see it move to 750, 755, 750, 780, it's establishing a trend. If it's at 800, it's also establishing a level. So it's important that we also note that. But during period of high speculations, it's always people has to be very careful. If not, you can get your finger burnt if you are trying to speculate based on a particular price. But if you focus on investment, which is long-term, period when you see that there's an established level established level for the Naira, you can invest and you're able to earn a return. And over time, because the problem is still here, it's not been solved, the government cannot tap the Eurobonds market, the multilateral loan is not easily accessible again, and we are not dealt with the oil theft issues. It means that there will continue to be pressure, and once there's pressure, there will be adjustment in the Naira.
Well, interesting one. That's almost letting you go. Now, what do you think investors will think about Nigeria, particularly at this time with all of these challenges around FX and repatriating funds?
Okay, thanks. We've seen rating agency downgrade Nigeria in the past few weeks, but we also know because we earn dollars, and when you look at the volume of Eurobonds that we have, and looking at the annual obligation, there's no fear that won't be able to meet those obligations. They are less than about 1 billion or 2 billion per annum when you look at the coupons that will be paid on the Eurobonds. But the only concern is this is a political period where there's a lot of uncertainty. We're expecting a new government. So what most foreign investors will be doing is to be on the sideline and see who comes in and what kind of policy will the person be working with. And that clarity will be needed, while the CBN will be trying its best to see how they don't allow the Naira to escalate, because it has direct impact on cost of living, because we import literally everything. And once there's high depreciation of the Naira, yes, inflation will be impacted, but overall, in terms of cost and standard of living, would also be impacted.
Interesting conversation as usual there. Mr. Ayodiji Ebo is the Managing Director, Chief Business Officer, Optimus by AfriInvest. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.